Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. Today I'd like to say a few words about the topic voidness. Just a few very simple points because there is an awful lot of misunderstanding. That doesn't need to be. Although it may take years to master the meaning of voidness, either through meditation, where you actually experience what it means, or by study, where you go through all of the Prajnaparamita teachings for many years and understand the philosophy of it back to front, the logic, the reason. There are a few absolutely vital points that anyone can get, and they're the ones I'd like to share today. The reason for that is because the misunderstandings can cause a lot of damage and a lot of waste of time. And one of our greatest Buddhist teachers ever, Saraha, who later became the Karmapas in Tibet, taught us that those who believe in reality may be confused, a little like cattle, but those who believe in voidness, in other words, those who get it wrong, are even worse. Some of the scriptures call them hopeless cases. I don't want to become a hopeless case. I'm sure you don't want to become a hopeless case. Hence these few brief words. The topic is voidness, which is from the Sanskrit shunya or shunyata, and it goes along with ideas and words like exists or doesn't exist. Voidness always has one meaning and one meaning alone for Buddhists, even though that might fall into the famous 16 or 20 categories or whichever way we analyze it. The meaning, the one perfect meaning is always the same. Voidness is always wisdom. Voidness is the wisdom that knows the difference between what seems to be and what really is. Voidness is the wisdom that knows the difference between what seems to be and what really is. Our problem is ignorance, illusions, delusions. The whole point of what we call Dharma is to find the truth. When we find the truth, then the illusion collapses. We see through it. We see that what seemed to be so true, in fact, wasn't the case. We see the voidness of that illusion. Voidness not in the sense of nothing whatsoever, total blank screen, deep blue space, none of that stuff. Nothing to do with it. We saw that it wasn't valid, null and void, that the illusion we were under was devoid of any reality at all. The problem with delusions is that they nearly always involve suffering. So if we are seekers of truth, we want to discover the voidness of our illusions and the truth of the matter. So voidness is always wisdom. And that wisdom can be found in all sorts of states, in the vivid busyness of life, in the quiet on the meditation cushion. Voidness is not a state. So if ever you hear or read in the books that such and such a master, teacher, Karmapa was meditating in a state of voidness, it's not like, gone for lunch, absent. Somewhere else in some state, disconnected from reality. Very, very much the opposite, in fact. Very much the opposite. It is recognizing the voidness of what is in this very moment. In other words, understanding the illusions of the moment, while at the same time seeing through those illusions. And let's take a very classical example the Buddha gave us of a mirage. Mirage, I hope you've seen a mirage on the road, in the desert, really looks like water. To look at, it's the same as if there were water on the horizon in the distance. If one didn't know, then one could even go wandering with a jerry can to get a good supply of fresh water. That might be the painful and hard way of discovering that in fact there is no water there. With wisdom, somebody can tell us how it works, the coming together of light, a hot surface, hot air, the human eye, and the memory of water. So many things coming together to make this illusion of water. But the point here is this. Once you know, what you see remains the same. The optical illusion is still there. But the way you see it, what you do about it, is different. And in the very moment of seeing it, something inside you knows that it's not what it seems. It's not that the shimmering on the horizon goes away because you know. Now when we apply that to the things that interest us in our meditation, in our work on ourselves, our illusions, we are looking at two main areas of illusion. The illusions we have about ourselves, ego illusions, and the illusions we have about what is other than ourself, the world, other people, life, nature. Once we understand, bit by bit, one by one, the various illusions that we've grown up with, that we've created on the way, and take them apart, it doesn't necessarily mean that those things stop to manifest. It doesn't mean that life is gradually erased piece by piece. And when you realize the illusion of self, of ego, it's not as though you'll suddenly disappear in a rainbow light and you'll be gone. The body will still be there. Your experience of life will still be there. But you'll have such a clear mind and such wisdom that the whole thing will be very, very different. And your life becomes no longer a self-centered life, but a life of compassionate care, because you realize just how many illusions there are and the trouble they're causing for people. We have two main areas of voidness: the voidness of I, self, the voidness of all the rest, phenomena, we call it. I'd like to conclude this short talk, which is just an introduction, by saying something about the voidness of self, and what you'll hear so many Buddhists say, I don't exist. Not just Buddhist students, unfortunately, even some Buddhist lamas are, according to the very great Buddhist lamas, living ones or the writings of ones who come before, very silly when they simply say, ha ha, I don't exist. Ha ha, you don't exist. Although philosophically it's true, the whole feeling of the thing and the understanding is wrong, because somehow it means it doesn't matter that I exist or you exist. The Buddha never said that. When the Buddha taught non-ego, non-atman, it's because at the Buddha's time, and at the time of Buddhist philosophers afterwards, there was the idea of an eternal soul. So I'd have some eternal Ken Holmes that never changes, somewhere, goodness knows where, that would be eternally me and there'd be eternally you. The Buddha says there's no such thing. Nobody ever found such a lasting eternal self. No soul, no Atman. But then the Buddha didn't go on from there to say, you don't exist and I don't exist. Very, very much on the contrary. If you look at most of the Buddha's teaching, they are about how we exist. Karma, cause and effect, the whole story of existence through the 5 stages of the path, in worldly existences, worldly reincarnations, how one can go beyond reincarnation, how that pure mind one becomes goes through the bodhisattva levels, and that remains a unique journey that never mixes with anybody else's journey. It's a discrete, unique stream of consciousness, we call it, until you are a perfect Buddha. So when we talk about I don't exist in Buddhism, it means that there is no lasting soul. But then how we exist, how our life is with its qualities and difficulties, that whole story is very beautifully described by the Buddha's teaching. Especially in Mahayana Buddhism, my existence is very important because I can turn that into one of love and wisdom. Your existence is important for me because it's through the relative reality of everything you are that I can develop the good heart of compassionate care and lead the good life that tries to make this world and everyone else's lives as happy and as meaningful as possible. The same thing applies to the non-existence of phenomena, everything that isn't me. When we discover their voidness, they still continue to exist relatively. We just no longer project onto them the fixed and mistaken projections and assumptions that we did before. Voidness is always that beautiful, clear-minded, obvious wisdom, once you know it, that knows the difference between illusions and truth. Thank you very, very much for listening. I wish you an excellent day filled with wisdom